One of the biggest challenges with using graphite pencils in art is that the darker you make the pencil, the shinier it gets. But can you make a darker graphite pencil that's less shiny? We will find out soon.
Hello and welcome to Stationery Test Drive, the show where even properly artistic tools are not safe from our weirdness. I'm Vishal.
This is Minjal,
I'm Samir.
and today we're looking at the Staedtler Mars Lumograph black pencils.
These are, as Samir said in the intro, trying to be as dark as possible without being shiny, which is a weird thing but is not so weird in the world where everyone does take photos of their work and put them on social media. We are on social media right now. You are watching this on a kind of social media, and this is some thing that I prepared earlier, which is a test sheet of the kind of range that you get. It comes as a set of 6, which is from HB, 2B, 4B, 6B, 7B, which is odd in more ways than one, and 8B. And yeah, these are matte black in they're handsome looking pencils with matte black and shiny bits. So, and yeah, the HB is a great HB. And the rest I'll test out. Why don't you guys tell us more about these kind of things?
So one of the reasons why we actually decided to test the Lumograph black is because we have tested the Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencils, the blue hexagonal Staedtler pencils.
The classic blue Staedtler pencils.
It was one of our first episodes, in fact.
And we've actually seen a lot of blogs, that kind of actually compare the two pencils, and we thought we'd just see if these are actually as matte, as a lot of the reviewers claim they are.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about matte, but they're definitely as dark as they claim they are. As you can see from here, especially that 6B.
So Staedtler in its marketing, and I'm sure some of the text here, claims these pencils are both harder to break, darker in their pigmentation. They don't actually mention the lack of shininess as much as they could have, but we will get back to that point later. They mention that these have a lot more carbon than your average drawing pencil. Now, of course, for those who know, all graphite is carbon anyway. So I assume what they mean is that there's a bit more of a charcoal-like pigment in it, mixed in with the graphite to give you that deeper black color.
Well, it's funny you should mention charcoal because that is one thing that we both, and maybe even you did, Minjal, thought of when we were using these pencils. They kind of go down like the best, most easy to use charcoal pencil that you ever have used. And anyone who has used charcoal pencils knows that they're not actually very easy to use.
Yeah, I think the tactile experience of using these pencils, like you mentioned, is actually like using some of the charcoal sticks or charcoal pencils without the mess.
Yeah.
And they also they don't really glide as smoothly on paper as even the Staedtler Mars Lumograph did. There is a little resistance, which I assume comes from the fact that it is the composition is more carbon. So that's why they feel a little grainy, or is that just a marketing spin?
No, I mean, as we were saying, technically graphite is carbon, charcoal is carbon too, but carbon is a very interesting material. I mean, diamonds are carbon too.
You are mostly carbon.
Also, the reason a higher graphite level pencil is smoother is because graphite is a very smooth substance. It's used as a lubricant in industries. So a pencil that's made of mostly graphite is very smooth on even a rough paper.
Right.
Charcoal, on the other hand, is not a smooth lubricating kind of substance. So you have more of that textured feeling while you're drawing it, but then on the other hand you get a much darker shade.
Apologies to anyone who does not like the sound of nails on a chalkboard because this thing is approaching it. It's something about the composition, yeah. If you may need to wear earmuffs while you're
I think on a
using
rough enough paper, you will get to that scratchiness.
Yeah, and
of
even
sound.
on this fairly smooth paper, it does sometimes squeak, and sometimes it does make quite a sometimes a pleasing sound. Let's not, I like that sometimes, but yeah, that the very chalky, carbony, whatever-y thing. But yeah, enough of test sheets. We are on test drives here, artistic ones. So why don't one of you show us what you've done? Aha!
That is very clean and lovely.
And dark.
And dark,
And
yes.
not shiny. So top marks for that.
Yeah, I mean, we have light shining down on this, and I can't see any reflection.
Like you can
on
see,
it.
there's obviously there's a light over here and here, but this one is just
I really have started liking, pencils for a lot of my lettering work. These the Mars Lumograph Black, I have to add. Like you said, yes, they're really jet black. One of the things I have to add is I usually hate using HB, the HB grade, because really it is very light and mostly serves no purpose. But no, yes, I mean, you would need it for, you're doing your basic drawings and everything. But, this particular HB is really one of the best HB grades that I would have used. Really, it doesn't, the nib doesn't break. You get these really nice, sharp outlines that you can get with it.
Yeah.
And I used, the darker grades to fill in the colors. It pretty much felt like you were using, like I said earlier, like a charcoal stick, or maybe like, a really nice pigmented color pencil.
Right, yeah.
The experience was not really of using a pencil at all. It felt like you were using something that is meant for actually filling in colors.
Right.
And, I'm going to use this set so much more for lettering, because it makes the whole process fairly enjoyable. One of the things I didn't really like is that this is not easy to erase.
No.
Yeah,
You cannot erase these.
And
if there are smudges, you can't erase it.
Yeah, I was remiss in my test drive because I
And
kind of went. I did not use an eraser either. Did you?
Not much. And
Yeah,
that actually
you
comes
kinda-
back down to the pigment used. So graphite, over now centuries, we have developed it to the point where it's easy to erase. But charcoal, or carbon as they like to call it, is not easy to erase.
Yes.
It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, this is probably the only time the Natraj, my favorite Natraj, Plasto eraser, fell short, and I had to use some 6-7 different combinations to actually clean this piece up.
Okay.
So, as much as I love the pencils, you have to be a little careful when you're putting down the darker shades.
Right.
Well, I was not careful, and in fact, I was not even very diligent in making a clean drawing. As you can see, there are like stains around this one. I also used only one pencil. I believe it was the 8B, because I thought, okay, let's just go full in and see what we can do with it. This is a study of a picture, a photograph by Philippe Halsman, who was a renowned photographer. If you have seen a picture of a black and white picture of a celebrity jumping somewhere, it's probably by Philippe Halsman. He's done pictures of Dali, which is what started off the thing, all the way to the Duke of Windsor. And in this one, which is based on a picture of Oppenheimer. There's a movie coming out, so maybe that was the reason I remembered it. But it's always been one of my favorite pictures. And this study is obviously not photographically correct, but it's I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed using just the one pencil to get this charcoal-like look without the charcoal fuss. I think it was very successful. I would love to try the other ones now, especially that I think that 6B is almost darker than the other ones.
I think we've come across that with pencils before, where as the grades go higher, people need to change the constitution of what they're mixing in as a binder. So sometimes you can find that a middle grade pencil, like somewhere around 6 or 8B, can feel darker
Than a 10B.
than a 10B, because the 10B needs to have more binder to keep it strong enough.
So, Samir, why don't you show us what you did with the pencils?
So I guess I did something that's not quite as freeform as Vishal's and not quite as neat as Minjal's.
But it is gorgeous though.
I mean, as soon as I started scribbling with these pencils, I just had to use it for a figure study because it just has such a deep black pigment when you push it into the paper. I thought this was the perfect way to test it out. I ended up using, I think, 2 or 3 pencils at the most, probably the 8B and the 4B for the most part. Yes, absolutely a joy to use. I think you need to lean into the roughness of it a little. That's why Minjal had to struggle with it when it came to cleaning out and keeping things, pure white and black. But yeah, this was just great to work on. The fact that you can layer them like you would a normal pencil and you can continue to layer them. The thing about graphite pencils is that once you have them down in a layer, it's very difficult to add in more darkness on top of it. Whereas I guess because there's more charcoal in these, you can kind of continue to darken portions like this over 2 or 3 layers. And that really helped. So areas like this on the side of the torso and the hair went through probably 3 or 4 layers of me shading it with a darker grade. And yeah, this was just a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, hopefully all of this comes through in our B-roll because in person these look just stunningly deep and dark, and the range of greys and blacks, actual blacks from graphite that you get are unusual.
So one of the claims, of the marketing for this particular set is that they don't give the shine like other graphite pencils do. So should we actually test, the Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencils also and see?
Well, let me move this one away from the center to this side. And why not? Yes, I have the Apsara Platinum, which is my favorite. And why don't you two see what you can get out of this? This is the Apsara Platinum, which I guess is closer to a 2B, I've always thought.
And this is a
very shiny.
A regular Apsara 2B, which we've never tested on the channel.
Yeah, it's a grey one, but it is very shiny. And that one's grayer and shinier.
But at the same time, you can see that this 2B and this 2B.
And this is a 6B, so that's like 6 to 6. That's the 6B there, and this is the Staedtler Mars Lumograph 6B, which is so much grayer, right? Like apples and oranges, not really, because these are both the same kind of orange and right next to each other. That's a huge difference between this 6B and the Lumograph Black 6B.
And I think what will really show up is if we kind of tilt it to the light.
Yeah.
And you can see that
these are
these
getting
bits
much more
are just reflecting a lot more than. Yeah.
Just do that for 15 seconds and we've got a little reel or short.
I think the shine is quite different when it comes to these more graphite ones and the carbon ones.
Well, I don't know if we had any real complaints with these, did we? Other than the fact that, the using the eraser on them is a bit tricky.
Now, I think for y'all, because y'all are artists and, the little unfinished edges obviously add to the overall finished product. For somebody like me, if you're actually trying to make a finished piece or something that you're
a clean thing that you want to kind of scan in,
yes, then I would probably actually use the Mars Lumograph and not really the black, because yes, if you can't use an eraser, it's very difficult.
I'm guessing maybe there's almost since Samir brought up that you can do layering, maybe there's a hybrid technique where you start your first layers off with the Lumograph and then just like use the blacks to fill in.
Use each to their own strength.
Yeah, this is almost like a last touch, because I love, especially in here, how much like depth of shadow you've got indicated just by layering it more. You've got a very even black here, and I've gone for this kind of like rough edge thing where it picks up the tooth, and this is not even a very toothy paper. I'm sure on something that's like much more canvassy you can get something, or even that.
But Minjal is right in that I think a lot of the experience of using this is more like using a really rich color pencil rather than a graphite pencil. And if you look back at some of our episodes, Vishal has got very similar results with color pencils.
Mm-hmm.
And Minjal has got kind of a similar texture with color pencils, and so have I. So it is something to keep in mind when you're using these. You need to think about them a little differently.
Yes, it would be interesting also to try to mix them with color pencils, because color pencils rarely have these darks. Yeah, so there's plenty more to depths to plumb with deep dark depths to plumb with the Mars Lumograph Black. Do we recommend this? Absolutely, right?
As far as doing a figure study or sort of a shading pencil drawing, this is by far the best shading pencil I've ever used.
This is by far the best pencil for just doing a random study with, a bit of texture, a bit of value, and it was one pencil, so it's not even like if you need to get the set. Although the set is pretty good, it's a great range, as we have shown you.
And speaking of ranges, one sort of aside is that there has been a lot of talk over the past year or two about pencils that are less reflective. As Vishal said, people take pictures of their drawings on social media, and that's where the less shine kind of becomes an important thing to get a good picture. The one that's been sold the most has been the Faber-Castell Pit Matte, if I'm not mistaken.
The Pit Graphite Matte.
Pit Graphite Matte, right? And it has the word matte in the name. We actually tried to get our hands on some of those, and they're A, quite expensive, and B, also difficult to find because they're kind of a new thing. I'd say if you've been looking for one of those, this is actually a good alternative. It just doesn't have the word matte in its title, but it does the same thing.
These are cheaper. These are available for $10-12 in the States and maybe some 800 Indian rupees.
Yeah, which is around $10, so it's about the same.
So if you've been trying to look for a dark pencil or the Pit Matte specifically for your graphite work so that you can take pictures of it cleanly, the Mars Lumograph Black is a great option. Please try it out.
Well, that's it for this episode. I think next week we have more normal, things, or maybe not so normal things. You'll have to come back and find out because
We will come back to find out too.
Yeah. So just get these. Get the we've done this before. Get the Mars ones. That was one of our early episodes. Get this one, the Apsara Platinum. We've covered all of these in depth in test drives like this, so you'll be able to see the full kind of range of what three weirdos get up to with it. Not
the full range.
Not the full range. Yes, there are plenty more episodes to come, plenty more weird to come, and we will be back for those. We hope to see you then. Until then, I'm Vishal.
This is Minjal.
I'm Samir. And if you liked this episode on pencils, as we have mentioned, we have done one on the Staedtler Mars Lumograph, the classic blue drawing pencil, and the one on the Apsara Platinum, which is one of our favorite general use pencils.
You know the best part about this? None of them are the General's Carpenter's pencil.